Have you ever noticed how quickly a dog changes when someone speaks gently? Not louder, not more clearly, not with better words, just softer. The body loosens, the eyes shift, the breathing changes. Sometimes the dog quietly walks closer without hesitation. And what makes this strange is that many dogs react before they even fully process the words themselves. Because dogs are not only listening to language, they are listening to emotional weight. Long before humans consciously learned how to hide emotions behind polite conversations, dogs evolved around nervous systems that constantly revealed internal states through sound. And even today, dogs still hear traces of those hidden emotional patterns inside the human voice. The small tension in a sentence, the rhythm of breathing between words, the difference between control and calm, the invisible gap between affection and stress. Most humans barely notice these details, but dogs do. Dogs listen to emotion before language. Humans often assume dogs mainly learn vocabulary: sit, stay, walk, dinner. And yes, dogs absolutely can connect words with outcomes. But the emotional tone surrounding those words often reaches the dog first. A dog may not fully understand an entire sentence, but they immediately notice whether the sound arriving from a human nervous system feels safe, tense, unpredictable, impatient, calm, exhausted, affectionate, or emotionally distant. This is partly because dogs evolved beside humans for thousands of years. Survival around humans depended less on understanding grammar and more on detecting emotional shifts early. A sudden sharpness in tone could predict danger. A calm, relaxed voice could predict safety. A rushed voice could signal stress spreading through the environment. Over time, dogs became extremely sensitive not just to what humans say, but to how emotional energy moves underneath speech itself. This is why two people can say the exact same sentence to a dog and receive completely different reactions. The words may be identical, but emotionally, the voices feel completely different. And dogs notice that difference almost instantly. Gentle voices change the dog's body. One of the strangest things about soft speech is that dogs often react physically before they react behaviorally. The body changes first. The shoulders loosen. The ears soften. The jaw relaxes. The blinking slows down. The breathing rhythm shifts. Sometimes the dog lowers itself onto the floor. Sometimes they quietly lean closer. Sometimes they stop scanning the room for tension. Because gentle speech can reduce uncertainty. Dogs constantly monitor environments for emotional instability. Even in loving homes, many dogs spend large portions of the day quietly analyzing mood changes humans do not realize they are displaying. Fast movements, abrupt sounds, frustrated sighs, stress-filled conversations, background tension. Dogs absorb far more of this than people realize. So when a human suddenly speaks gently, especially consistently, the dog often interprets it not simply as friendliness, but as emotional predictability. And predictability creates safety, not because the dog consciously thinks through these ideas in words, but because the nervous system reacts to patterns long before conscious thought appears. Dogs notice the difference between softness and suppression. Interestingly, dogs are often sensitive to something humans themselves struggle to detect: the difference between genuine calm and forced calm. A person may lower their voice while still carrying frustration underneath. The volume changes, but the tension remains, and many dogs still detect it. Because dogs are not only listening to loudness, they are listening to emotional consistency. Humans sometimes assume a soft voice automatically feels safe. But to dogs, safety involves alignment, tone, body posture, breathing, movement speed, facial tension, timing. Dogs process all of these simultaneously. This is why a truly calm person often affects dogs differently than someone merely pretending to sound calm. The nervous system behind the voice matters, and dogs quietly notice when the emotional signal underneath speech does not match the surface performance. Why dogs move closer to gentle people? Many dogs instinctively move toward people who speak softly and steadily. Not always because the person is physically safer, but because the emotional environment around them feels easier to predict. For dogs, unpredictability creates mental workload. A loud, unpredictable person forces constant monitoring. A rapidly shifting emotional state keeps the dog alert. A tense household creates invisible pressure the dog continuously tracks. But gentle communication often reduces that pressure. The dog no longer needs to prepare for sudden emotional changes every few seconds. And when vigilance decreases, attachment behaviors can quietly increase. This is why some dogs slowly follow calm people from room to room. Not dramatically, not desperately, just quietly, because certain nervous systems simply feel easier for dogs to exist around. Dogs remember how human voices feel. Humans often remember conversations through meaning. Dogs may remember them more through emotional atmosphere. The feeling surrounding repeated interactions matters deeply. A dog may forget individual words, but they remember patterns. The human who sounded patient during stressful moments. The human whose voice became softer near fear. The human who reduced tension instead of adding more. Over time, these repeated emotional experiences shape how the dog anticipates future interactions. This can slowly influence trust, relaxation, recovery speed, confidence, attachment, not because gentle voices magically solve every behavioral problem, but because nervous systems continuously teach each other what to expect from the world. And dogs spend their entire lives quietly studying the emotional patterns surrounding them. Careful listeners. Most people believe dogs listen mainly for commands. But often, the deeper thing they are studying is emotional safety. Not through complicated analysis, not through human-style interpretation, but through thousands of tiny sensory patterns flowing underneath the voice itself. The pauses, the pressure, the rhythm, the tension, the steadiness. And this may be why gentle speech affects dogs so deeply. Because for a dog, a calm voice is sometimes more than sound. Sometimes it becomes evidence. Evidence that the environment is stable, that the human nearby is emotionally predictable, that vigilance can relax for a moment. And somewhere inside that quiet shift, the dog stops preparing for uncertainty, even if only briefly, which may explain why some dogs look at soft voices differently. Not because they simply hear kindness, but because, for a few seconds, they feel emotionally safe inside the sound itself. Why anxious dogs react strongly to voices. Anxious dogs often respond to tone more intensely than relaxed dogs. Because anxious nervous systems constantly search for prediction, even tiny shifts in vocal pressure can feel important. A slightly rushed sentence, a sharp exhale, a frustrated rhythm. Humans may barely notice these changes, but anxious dogs sometimes track them immediately. This is why consistent gentle speech can gradually help some anxious dogs settle. Not because the dog understands reassuring words perfectly, but because stable emotional patterns slowly reduce the need for constant vigilance.